Possibly my favorite position to be in, both as your favorite analyst, your favorite fighter, and a big fan. Possibly my biggest one is where we don't know what's going to happen. There's always a card that comes along. Guys, it already happened this year. It was UFC 300. There's always a card that comes along where you don't have the top bill filled in just yet. We got an idea. We got a rumor. We even had a plan. We had Belal Muhammad versus Shavkat Rakhmonov, which was a surprise. By the way, that was hard to get us to that point for T-Mobile for the end of the year show. Many people just said, look, we can't main event them right now. But you damn near got to make that fight right now. There was some moving parts. There was usual suspects. I thought Kamaru Usman could have taken that bill. Why Rakhmonov goes out and finds one more. But everybody thought that. That was just one of the possible things you could do. Or you can take the completely undefeated Rakhmonov, who's finished everybody. Rakhmonov has been so successful. This does not happen in modern time. This is always through folklore. I know a guy, and he fought 17 men, and he finished all of them. Equal knockouts to submission. Like, sure you know him. That's how unbelievable he is. So you could see where he would go into a main event. And the problem with him getting on the docket with Kamaru Usman is on the docket with Jack Della Lema in a completely different continent. And the UFC does not break up fights. It's important that you understand that. I know that they could, and I know that things change, and I even know there's a historical reference where it has happened. But for the most part, far and away, the UFC will do everything in its power to bring and deliver to you the product that they said they were going to bring and deliver to you. Like the whole asterisk at the bottom that says card subject to change. That's true, but the UFC will try for it to not be. They'll do everything they can. And a lot of times the way that will work is you bring one guy down, but you keep the other guy. That's how much the UFC likes to deliver what they promised. Deliver what they planned. It's the word I should use. So the way that would look is Belal Muhammad versus Shavkat Rakhmonov. Belal Muhammad comes off the bill. Rakhmonov stays. You bring somebody else for Rakhmonov. That is generally how the UFC would do things or try to do things. On the very rare occasions where that doesn't happen, the UFC traditionally will, within the same statement of Rakhmonov, Muhammad is out, within the same statement, they will give you the remedy, which is we're going to take that fight and we're going to move it to a different card. But they'll let you know right away, commonly. And that's not what happened here. We don't exactly know the pickle that Belal has found himself in. The other side of the coin, I can't remember interiming a belt when a guy was hurt. I know we've never stripped a guy that was hurt. So what do you do there? What do you do there if you're trying to satisfy the idea of Rakhmonov staying in place when Rakhmonov being in place was for a title and that title now isn't there? What do you do? Do you keep him and do you interim it? You could. Do you bring in two other great studs? You could. Do you go and get Kamaru Usman? Well, you could, but now you're leaving Jack Della Lema hanging, which might be part of the current plan, considering Colby Covington, who's got his thumb on top of everything, just said that he would be interested in fighting Jack Della Lema, which Colby never would have said if he thought that fight was completely secure with Kamaru and Jack. So now you start getting into one of these what ifs. I'm telling you, that's what I like. I think this is very fun. I love being in this spot. I love to hear from the 70-pounder, though. I would love to hear Ian Gary come out and make his argument, and I know Ian's been a man about it. When Ian gets asked about Rakhmonov, he's a man about it. He tells the truth. I trained with him, didn't go my way. I'm all for doing it in competition. He's a man about it, but he hasn't gone out of his way to get that fight. You guys could agree with me on that. And I don't think we should interim the title. I really don't. I'd be for it if we did, but I don't think that we should. Just because historically when a guy's hurt, we don't do that. Guys, I'll give you an example, but Yuri Prohaska had the mystery shoulder problem of the decade. Nobody knows what's wrong with his shoulder. Nobody ever knew what was wrong with his shoulder, but we were told it was the worst shoulder that a doctor somewhere had ever seen. Right? When we don't hear it from the doctor, we hear that from somebody who heard it from a doctor. It's the worst shoulder. They pulled that belt off of him in like 9 days. But simultaneously, now they didn't think he'd ever be back, right? You're operating on the information that you have. They don't think he'll ever be back. So at some point, we have to do this. Let's just get on with it now. Turned out to be the right decision. And thank goodness his shoulder turned out to be okay, and he got to come back and fight for the belt. Like, that whole story worked out perfectly. But I'll give you one that didn't, was Francis Ngannou. Francis gets done February, March, something like this. With Surreal gone, ends up in a contract dispute, starts putting his numbers out there, starts putting his other ideas out there. That's fine, but it's very clear we're probably not getting Francis back. Why didn't they cut him? Yuri Prochazka had none of those things. He was dying to get back, but he had a shoulder they didn't think he could ever return from. Why didn't we cut Francis? It wasn't to help with the contract dispute, guys. It was because he was hurt. He was objecting to the contract, but simultaneously he was going in for MCL surgery. They just didn't strip a guy when he was hurt. I'm just bringing it to your attention that I don't know that you got a better argument with Rakhmonov, and it's very hard to argue that you do when the next best thing is Kamaru Usman. You already booked him somewhere. Had you not booked Kamaru Usman, sure, bring Kamaru, but now it's tough. And Kamaru's not going to fight Rakhmonov just for the pleasure of it. You're going to have to put up an interim belt. Otherwise, you got a contenders match. Well, now you got a second-rate title against second-rate opponents, and we only know they're second-rate because that's a decision that was already made. Now, all of this stuff is conjecture by me, but it's fun. I like to not know. I do believe, and I can tell you for sure, Ankalaev and Pierre was looked at for that date, but I can also tell you that Pierre is somewhere wearing a bunny suit, getting hit in the belly by some nerd with a YouTube channel. And all the while, he was visiting his tribe in Brazil, and allegedly, there's something a little bit wrong with his hand. Now, Alex Pereira is the tough kind of mother effer that'll make his way back home, train through the holidays, and get ready for Ankalaev. I don't question that, but is that something that we should do? Is that the right thing to do? So, that might be the direction, but it might not. And I did think it was intriguing when Colby said that he'd be interested in Jack, because that frees up Kamaru. And where you guys have been going with it, when I read the threads in the comment section right here on my own YouTube page, is you guys have found Kamaru Usman and you've put him in there with Rakhmonov, and you've even done it for an interim title. You might get your way. That might be exactly what it is. And if anybody should be pushing for that, it'd be Blal. The winner of that whole thing, the winner of Rakhmonov and Kamaru fighting for an interim title, the greatest winner in that easily is Blal. It doesn't help anybody more than it helps him. And Blal doesn't disagree with people that say, hey, him and Rakhmonov is a tough top of the bill. Blal will go out and he will do his part. He will do everything he can to make that exciting, but it's going to be one way. He would love it if you shined a guy up a liture bit. Picture's worth 1,000 words. If Blal could have pictures going out there with he and Rakhmonov both with belts on their shoulders, all of a sudden you have a very different night of business. So, I love it. I love times like this. I do. I have always believed, and I believe it for very good reason, but I've always believed that Pereira's next fight will be against Tom Aspinall. I understand those things can be broken up and those things can be changed. And maybe Pereira versus Ankalaev, and that's the direction you got to go. And by the way, if you're the UFC and you ask for that fight, even if you don't make that fight, you now have to make that fight just at a different day. Because you lose your only argument of, no, he doesn't deserve or he wasn't exciting enough or that's not the direction we want to go. As soon as you call and offer it, any excuse that you would have for not making it at a different day, they're now gone. They're now gone. So, for you Ankalaev Pereira lovers, I think that you'll get that as long as Pierre is still within the division. For you Shavkat Rakhmonov lovers, I can't guarantee he stays on the bill because he hasn't asked for it. He hasn't asked and demanded and found opponents. He hasn't said, I'll put the line in the sand and I'll fight anybody. He hasn't offered to put up what he has, which is a #1 contendership. He hasn't offered to put it up because his mind doesn't work that way and he doesn't realize that's what he has, but he does. He is the #1 contender, signified by the fact that he is about agreement against the champion. Rakhmonov should have been out. And he should have been offering to put up his #1 contendership. And it's not too late. And if Shavkat wants to stay on that card, like many times in Shavkat's past, he's going to have to take a little advice from Uncle Chael.